What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Keep Growing, the spot where resilience meets style and self-improvement gets a cultural twist. We're here to help young men like you walk through life with confidence, intention, and a plan for success. From life tips to fresh kicks, we've got the tools and inspiration to help you not just survive, but thrive. From where you are to where you're going, let's keep growing. What's going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. It's your boy, Fabian Reyes, the host of Keep Growing. And next to me, I got my best friend, Julian Robertson, and just very blessed to be sitting here with y'all today, man. It's been, for us, it's felt like a while just because we usually do this on a cadence of once a week. But, you know, with things coming up, I'm just, very glad to have both of us sitting here, happy, healthy, and just living the best life that we can. Yeah. We're going to talk about the law of detachment. We're going to talk about how that applies to all of our lives. And as men, it's important for us to be able to identify those areas that we need to detach from, whether it's, money, whether it's wealth, or whether it's materialistic items. So it's an eventful conversation that we're about to have, but I really want to get to know your opinion on it because I had Julian read the book before we ended up sitting here on this conversation. So, Julian, I wanted to see what your thoughts were on the book itself.
Yeah. The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success.
Plug it real quick. I didn't even say the book, y'all. So let me go ahead and throw it up real quick. So this is going to be the book that you guys can see the focus is. I don't know if it's going to focus, but 7 Spiritual Laws of Success by Deepak Chopra. So, man, what did you think about it?
Yeah, and that's the blessing within it is we recommend books to each other. So that's one of the books that you recommended me. And, ended up reading it, and it's a great book. It's not a long read, but it's a powerful read. And as we spoke before, I think we spoke a little bit about it before on a previous episode, and just off camera as well. But that specific chapter it's a powerful chapter, and we both spoke on it. That's our favorite chapter. I think it's just so powerful because it can really be applied to in real life on an everyday basis. And I think that's what makes it very, very impactful and just essential is in the sense of like you can literally use the things and within that chapter just on an everyday basis. For example, just like going to the gym or seeing certain things and just by nature you might see something and you might have a take or perspective on it that has nothing to do with you. And just by seeing something and just not paying it any mind and focusing on yourself, your journey, what you have going on, that matters. Because as it alludes to in the book, when people do that and then they do that over and over and over again in the sense of paying attention to stuff that doesn't have any credence in their life, that just steamrolls into other things. But when you can remove that mindset of seeing something and maybe having not a judgment on it, but just a perspective on it, and it has nothing to do with your life or what you have going on, and just seeing it and just being like, oh, okay, and just getting right back on track to what you have going on, that alleviates so many things and just keeps you in a constant state of focus. And I think that specific chapter, that's one of the things. But the other thing is just in the law of attachment, not being attached to. It gets into depth, as you know, but not being attached to certain things in regards to like. A lot of times people have attachment to items, materials, possessions, and removing yourself from that. And it speaks to like the happiness that comes from just not having a lot, but having quality. Yeah, for sure. So just those things. Having enough. Yeah. And coinciding those things, it really matters.
No, and I think the other side of the points that Julian was talking about is making sure that you can find the easiest ways to apply it to your life with obviously everyone's lifestyle is looking different. But I think all in all, man, it's just a great read. And every chapter you can go through within, 10 minutes or less, I would say. And it doesn't need to be something that you're an A+ reader, you're a B+ reader. I mean, I would say that the comprehension level on this is very, very easy to understand. And there's not much of a jargon that you really got to consume or digest. It's so, in the book, the words are there and it's straightforward. And that's what I love about it. So before we get into that conversation, we, like always, we'll get into our game changer topic. And this is a topic that is random. That is something that I pull out or that Julian offers before we get into the main 2 segments of the show. For today specifically, we are going to focus just on law of detachment itself and detachment and how that affects, men in our world and in today's society. So for the question today that I have for the game changer segment, Julian, I want to know, what did you want in life when you were 20 years old, and how does that compare to what you want now?
Great question. Well, that was around the time I was playing sports still. So
Okay.
my aspirations were heavily sports based.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
From a basketball perspective, just in regards to if anybody's competitive within sports, you want to get to the highest level.
Yes, absolutely.
So I think around that time, I mean, I was in school. I was probably going into my sophomore year around that time, 20. Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Sophomore, junior year, one of those two. But it was seeing where basketball could take me.
Okay.
And just really focusing on what am I gonna in a real way? Because in college, after that, it's okay. You have to start really making moves. So it was really just thinking about where basketball is gonna take me. Now at this point in life, it's totally different.
Yeah.
I've transitioned out of playing basketball until just working out. But aspiration wise, it's more so. I mean, and we talk about it often. And I think anybody who knows me knows I kind of I talk about it a lot. But my aspirations now are heavily travel based. Traveling, seeing the world, just exploring, and so and just finding but also realizing who I am outside of sports.
Like that.
And I think that comes a little like I realize that I'm well within that now. But I think it comes into a place for any athlete figuring out who they are outside of that sport, their perspective.
It's not a next day understanding, and
Exactly.
it's an everyday learning on what that looks like.
Exactly. And I think it's cool when you can see people who are athletes and they know who they are outside of that sport while they're still in the sport. But a lot of people are consumed by the sport while they're playing it. So I just say that to say at this point, my mindset is it's vastly different.
It's mature now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So my aspirations are far greater. Well, I don't want to say greater, but they're just far different than what they were when I was 20.
No, dude, I think those are great points to cover on, and I can pull from that, easily.
Absolutely.
And I will just a little bit. Like
sure.
at 20 years old, I was probably a sophomore too, and a different situation than yours in this case with college and sports. But I think I was at a point where all I wanted was to be able to know that I had a chance to, continue playing the sport as long as possible.
Okay.
Like I always wanted to go pro,
sure.
but I think one thing that I did want at 20 years old was just knowing that I had the best possible chance to, make it.
For sure.
So I was very much like you, consumed in the fact that everything was revolved around sports in my life.
Sure.
And I didn't really know anything else that I was really good at. I just knew that I had an athletic talent, and God gave me, the gifts to be able to be athletically inclined. And I just thought that was it for me. So I was like, I'm going to put all my eggs in my basket, and that's what I'm going to focus on. To where, fast tracking now, I'm 27. And, there's still days where I'm still discovering things, but I would say what I want now in my life is very, very more deep and purposeful. And I think, one thing that I do want in my life that I would be, very happy with is just the ability to have conviction in, I wouldn't say the choices that I make, but the ability to be at peace with the person that I am.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I think I've grown in so many areas and areas that I've looked at, internally for myself, but I still think that there's a lot more work that I need to put in.
Okay,
and
absolutely.
I think when I'm 30, I'll be able to, answer that confidently with like, this is who I am. This is what I stand for. And this is how I'm going to continue to live my life, the rest of my life. So I think I'm close, bro, but I would say, I would be at peace right now if I could, figure out what that person is and, what that mold is really going to look like. So
Absolutely.
that would be mine. But yeah, man, great. Oh, wow. You want to do that? Great conversation to get things going. So to go again, to talk about the law of detachment, I wanted to read just a small little excerpt from the book, and it's in the chapter, and each chapter has its own little excerpt. So this is chapter 6, law of detachment, and this is going to get us going into the conversation. But it says, in detachment lies the wisdom of uncertainty. In the wisdom of uncertainty lies a freedom from our past, from the known, which is a prison of past conditioning, and in our willingness to step into the unknown, the field of all possibilities. We surrender ourselves to the creative mind that orchestrates the dance of the universe. And I think that just gives you a good glimpse of what the chapter really is going to go into. And I think there are some common themes that gets talked about throughout the book that you just have to read to understand really what it's going into. But to get going into this first topic of just how powerful the law of detachment is and detaching yourself from these things. And I think the best way to look at it is knowing what things you need to detach from. And you can only really do that by self-analyzing and doing like a full audit of your life of what really, defines you as a person. And I'm sure both of us can answer that question, but in your opinion, Julian, like how powerful is detachment in your life? And, how do you check yourself every day to make sure that you're living in that detachment state?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me, it's for sure it's a conscientious state of mind.
Yeah.
But to bring it to a very tangible reality, I like to. I mean, I'm not saying I coined the phrase, but I like to say the phrase in regards to saying I like what do I say from a minimalistic standpoint. So and I say that to say in regards to like quality minimalism, but in the sense of like not having too many things, but having quality in the things that you have. And that goes into that chapter just in regards to, I think a lot of times just from, again, a tangible standpoint, we like to have things, whether it's clothes, whether it's shoes, whether it's aesthetics in your place, whether it's whatever it is, items. And I think, that can often bring anxiety unconsciously to people without them really knowing it. Or they feel attached to all these things. And life goes on and they feel like, well, I need to bring all these things from this point to that point and just furthermore within that. But I think when one realizes like you don't really need that much. And it's better to have quality of whatever things that you have in regards to quantity, whether that be anything.
Yeah.
And so I can contextualize, like, for example, I mean, I would still consider myself a sneakerhead in many regards, but I used to have probably 80 something shoes.
Wow.
Well over that. I mean, I love you know what I mean? Like, I was at
that's
that
where
point.
that's where your heart was.
That's where I was when I was a little bit younger, especially in college. I was foam posits, Jordans.
Oh, you got the OG.
Pippins, just a multitude of different shoes. At the point I'm at now, of course, I'm gonna always dress a certain way. I'm gonna always be fresh and be comfortable and things of that nature. But I'm more so lean towards quality and a certain type of aesthetic, more so than having a lot of, whether that's shoes, clothes, things like that. And there's a certain freedom that comes within that. And then in the sense of, if you had to pick up right now and just be on the move or whatever that is, would one feel like, well, how am I going to get all of these things from this place to that place? Or, okay, cool, let me pack a few bags and I'll be on the move. As long as we really have some funds in a bank account, you're really good. That's really what it boils down to, honestly. And so I look at things from that standpoint now. And just also, like I said, from the last segment, my mindset is geared towards travel now. So for me personally, I care about what's in my account more than having a whole bunch of shoes and clothes and things like that, because my mindset is being on the go and traveling and exploring and things like that. So I don't really care about, like, if you know how to dress, you can dress everywhere.
Yeah, you can do whatever you need to.
I say that in the sense of, I don't really care about having a lot of things at this point. I'm more so focused on financially being super, super free and being able to live how I want to.
Yeah.
And that's what matters to me. So that's really where the shift comes in.
Yeah, that's strong. I like that. And I think where your status is at in that moment, I'm currently entering that process right now, because I've definitely gotten the shoes that I feel like I've wanted and the shoes that I definitely didn't need to go after and get. But now I'm at the point where I'm like, okay, I have too much. Like when you get to that point, you look at it from a outside standpoint, and I'm like, now, dude, I have so much stuff, clothes, shoes that I don't even wear. Like I don't even care about, honestly. And you're right, because it does come down to an anxious mindset, because you get into that level of thinking of like, oh man, I have all this stuff and I'm not using it, so I need to use it. How am I going to utilize it? Get these
fits off. How am I
exactly? And so then you try forcing things, and then you got to. Well, I got to step outside, and then I got to do this more, and then I got to find more friends, and then so it turns into like a whole anxious mindset to where you don't feel like you're getting the ROI on the stuff that you got. And I've been like that for a while now, dude. I'm just more in the terms of like, okay, I'm ready to get rid of stuff, and perfect timing, because now I'm getting ready to move out into a new spot, and it's like, all right, let's clean out the decks. So one example I will give that I really liked was back to the whole Shia LaBeouf situation. In his podcast, he talked about how when he was in AA, the guy, his sponsor, told him like, you need to clean the decks. That's what he does. And I like that phrase. Like I really enjoy listening to that and understanding what that meant. But he told him, he's like, you need to get rid of everything. He's like, but I just got into this relationship. Like we're like, this is the one. Like I feel like she's the one. And he told him, he's like, if you don't let go of things right now,
for sure,
you're never going to grow. You're never going to really truly see what type of person you can grow into because of the things that you're attached to.
Absolutely.
And no, he said he went home and the girl that he was with, they were living together, but it wasn't his wife. Her bags were packed. And she was like, "Hey, I'm done. I'm heading out." And it was like God's blessing. And he was like, "Oh wow, like this is crazy." And
right after the
conversation, like he was driving home and basically telling him on the phone, like, you need to get rid of everything. Including like phone, her. Yeah. He was like, you need to break it off. Okay. And so he was like, all right, well, why? Like I don't know if I can do this anymore. He's like, all right, well, I'm out. Like, I'm not going to sponsor you if you're not going to take it serious. Wow. So Shia LaBeouf got home and his girl already had her bags packed without even knowing what the conversation was. So I'm like, in certain things, like there is a God's blessing behind it. But I think like for me, in terms of, detachment being power, I think from a like perspective of the things that you love or that you're attached to possibly do not love you back like that. And I think a lot of the attachment things that we have towards, concrete items, like things that won't ever love you back, is such a toxic thing to have, because in reality, we're leaning on, in this case, the shoes, we're leaning on the title at your job, we're leaning on the whole like egotistical, mindset that people tell you who you are, to thinking that like, oh wow, that's what I'm going to tell myself in my mind. So when you actually realize how strong of a person you can be when you're living free of flow, which is another thing that gets talked about in the book, it's amazing how effortlessly, and creative you get. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just so crazy how things just start to fall in line for you. And I think it can kind of align to the whole thing of like God's plan is greater than yours, which another saying that I love the most. So man, I think it's a great thing to have. And I would like you to kind of clarify and go a little bit deeper on what it took for you to get to that point. Like, did it take some type of struggle, or was it like pretty effortlessly for you to really just like turn that switch on and just be like, you know what, it's time to really like audit myself and see what I really want to, put my whole into?
Yeah, that's a really good question, man. I think, wow, that's a profound question, because it's like, when does that switch happen? And I think, at least for me, it was, wow, it's really making me think about that.
Yeah, no.
I think really when it boils down to it, it is a certain level of maturity that comes into it. But I think the biggest thing, and you kind of alluded to in regards to when we just have a lot of things, and we'll stick on the tangibles. When you have a lot of things, it does, whether somebody is understanding or realizes it, it brings a certain level of just anxiousness to, like, for example, if we say outfits, how am I going to get all these fits off? When am I going to get them off? Or I need to go get something else, or whatever it might be. And I think once somebody has an understanding of, all right, I don't like feeling like that, or why, what's making me feel like this? And you realize what it is, a reality kicks in towards, do I really need this? Right. Do I really need it? And I say that in conjunction with when I would see people who, whether they were traveling or people that I knew had wealth, and I saw them live and operate within a minimalistic lifestyle.
I know what you're talking about.
To me, it was a correlation of, now we know that they're financially good, but they don't have all of these things, and they're just in a flow, in a sense of being
they're so happy.
Exactly.
Like they're so joyful.
Exactly. And I correlated that, and it just got to a point to where it was like, at least for me, and that's why I say for me personally, and looking at and reading about wealth and people that have their finances together and just things like that, because I like reading financial books. The correlation was, if we're reading things and we're looking towards things for guidance or for mentorship in the sense of books, it makes sense to follow the path of what people are doing that have. So if I'm reading books on people that have wealth, that have acquired a certain level of just finances and wealth, but they live minimalistically. They don't have a whole lot of things, or when they do, they operate within a certain space, whether that's in investing, or they do get things, but it's quality over just quantifying it or having a quantity of things.
Like 6 cars.
Exactly, or whatever it is. And I started to conceptualize that, like, what's the point? Like what's really the point? And then also just in regards to, like, like traveling and things like that, you don't really need, like, there's no need to have a lot. There's really no need to lie. And that's what have a lot. And that's why I say, for me personally, it leaned more towards, and I get it. This is not to make anybody feel any type of way in regards to where they are financially or what's in their bank account or whatever the case is. But I think from the standpoint of making sure that whenever you look in your account, you're at least realizing that you're building or you're bettering yourself. That's really all that matters. Because we can have a whole bunch of clothes, a whole bunch of shoes, cars, items, whatever it is, you know what I mean? And then, all right, but do you have freedom in regards to can you just readily do this, or can you go here, or can you take care of this? You know, so what does it really matter? What really matters is being able to have like freedom, and whatever you feel like freedom is for yourself. But the reality is, we live in a world where you need finances.
You have to have it.
You need it, and we're grown. So it's like, me personally, what would I rather have? I'd rather look at my account and be like, okay, all right, I'm not where I want to be. I'm pretty sure we can all get to a certain place to where it's like, all right, cool. But it's like, all right, I'm building towards it, or I'm cool, or that's what matters to me most.
Yeah.
Than having like, oh, I have that, or I have this, or I just got that, and it's like, that's cool. We all were in that space, or we could have been in that space. But I think when you're getting in a space to where, and like how you said in the Shia LaBeouf interview, when you clean house or you clean the deck, that's a real thing. But it takes a certain level of maturity.
It does. You have the maturity, and then obviously the ones that do it by themselves, you know, a lot more props to them. But like the people that have that foundation of, he had somebody that was like, trust me, bro, like trust me that I've been in your situation before, and you got to clean the decks because I'm gonna be here for you whenever you do, and it's gonna suck. Yeah. But I do think it's important, like we always say, to have that family, you know, positioned backing you when you do make those decisions, because it's just going to be a little bit more challenging if you don't. But I think who is it, Ramsey, that says it best? You are your three most financially funded things that you get, like
that makes sense.
Like whatever you buy. So like if it's shoes and, you know, food and like video games, and that's who you are. Like if that's where you put most of your check towards, that's what you know tend to desire the most. And you know, I think it's a very like fine line, because then you could easily be so attached with the finances of it to where you got to check yourself still of like, hey, like I got to live, you know, a certain type of way. I'm not liking, or I'm not, you know, falling suit for like a bunch of the shoes anymore or whatever. But I am loving the fact that I have this money to know that I can be flexible with it.
For sure.
But I think the whole like purpose of, you know, and we can both kind of like agree on it, of the law of detachment, which I think some people can think of detachment as not caring. Like that can be like the, I think, thing that people will think of when it comes to like, oh, well, if you're detaching from a situation or from a materialistic item, it just means you don't care about it anymore. It's not necessarily true. I think the book will teach you the fact that it's the overall being of trusting. You're trusting the new path that you're taking. And although it's a hard path, you're trusting the fact that it's going to pay off in another way. And I think that's one thing that I've been, you know, very cognitive on my end of, when I start getting rid of these clothes and these shoes, it's to not say that I don't care about sneakers anymore, because we both do, but it's understanding that, hey, this is going to pay off in another way, whether it's traveling and getting to experience and grow in yourself as that way, or you're going to find a newfound hobby that you never got to do because of the fact that financially you maybe didn't have those funds, or you didn't come across the right person. You know what I mean? So
it's really just not having any constraints. Not being constrained in any way. That's really what the law of attachment is. It's not, like you said, not being nonchalant or not caring. It's just not being constrained or having confines within any realm it is. And it's crazy you said Shia LaBeouf, man, because I look to his style in regards to a lot of things. I like his style, but it's from a very minimalistic standpoint. It's kind of grunge a little bit, but it's also like with the boots or certain things that he wears, but it's very minimalistic, and I like that look.
It's like I would say a tier up to what Adam Sandler does. Like it's just a little bit more like coordinated.
Exactly,
there you go.
It's more stylish.
It's more coordinated. Yeah. But I do like that point, because you do point out a huge key that I think people talk about all the time. How, you know, nowadays, which I will give the generation that's under us and that we're in a lot of credit, because they do want to take care of that money and take care of the finances. I think one key tip, like you said, that you can easily do for yourself is to really understand like all this stuff out here, the clothes and the shoes, it really doesn't mean nothing, man. Like maybe you have one pair, you know, a couple pairs, or, you know, a few pairs, whatever. Like, and I'm talking to myself too. Like I'm getting to that point. I think the better you can like present yourself is by understanding, like, inside I am convicted that I know what I am and I know how much money I have.
Exactly.
And I'm not going to lead with that. I'm going to lead with the fact that, like, I look good. I look good in this, you know, $50 fit. And I don't know about anyone else, but to me, dude, I feel the best when I have like a discounted shirt or a pair of jeans. Absolutely. And I'm like, dude, I got these for like $10. Like that's such a steal. And I feel so much better than spending $80 on something. For
sure. Because and lastly, just for what I want to say in regards to this, that itch will never go away. And I think that's the biggest thing. You know what I mean? Like the itch, and and also just speaking on the question that you asked in regards to what made me, you know, switch. Because again, we're both sneakerheads. We both love shoes. For me, the itch to get new, there are going to always be new shoes that come out every day. There's going to always be new clothes. Like their clothing lines, they drop every day. If you look on whatever site, on Instagram, wherever you look, something is dropping every single day. That itch will never go away.
No.
So it's on you to have that realization and have actualization as well, to be like, as long as if you know how to dress or you know what you like, you can still do that within certain realms, but you could shop every second of the day and it still won't alleviate that feeling, because it's gonna always be there. So it's an internal thing to be like, you know what? I know how, and I'm just speaking from a very tangible standpoint. I know how to dress. I know if I need to, I can do it. I can dress however I need to, but I don't need to go shopping often. I don't need to get new shoes all the time. I know I have what I need, and when I need certain things, I have them in my closet. Other than that, the focus and the gear point goes towards other things. But that just comes from maturity. It comes from an internal place.
Absolutely.
And I think once one gets to that place, whenever they do get to it, it is freeing.
Oh, bro, yes.
It's freeing.
Yeah.
Because I see people, and it's just from a perspective, like from an observant standpoint, when you see somebody and it's like, wow, you feel like you always need to get something, or you feel like you always, and it's like, I get it. I'm not knocking. But once you alleviate yourself from that law of a detachment, you're not gonna feel like you need to. Oh, they got that. I need to get it. I need that. That's what just came out. I need to go get that as well. That's what's new. I need to go. Oh, that clothing brand. Oh, that trend. There's trend. Like for people who are on social media a lot, trends are every 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Clothing. You know, clothing brands drop a line. I think they said like once a week now. That's what fast fashion is for. Like,
can one really keep up with that?
And it's all facade.
In a conscientious way.
And it's funny because it's all a facade for the ones that are, you know, making the content, because knowingly that they're not spending the money. You know, they're sending it back, or they're in somewhat, you know, working towards getting those, you know, those free things, or if you even want to call them free. But on the flip side, you have the anxious consumer who, that's what marketing is, bro. That's what my whole psychology understanding of marketing, to do something great in that aspect, is to make someone feel left out. And
mental manipulation.
It's a scary place, bro. Like if you think about it from another side of it, like from the side of the marketing standpoint, it's good because it's money. But from the flip side of the consumer, it's like, dude, you got to be tired at some point. Like you said, once you get out of that in whatever lane that you're in that moment, or that, you know, type of FOMO, if you call it, you're gone. Like you feel so relaxed at that time. And I think the perfect, you know, correlation to what we just talked about is, you know, working in marketing, I can get so caught up with results, right? Like you can get caught up with views, with how many people are buying things, with how many people are liking the content. And with this content, like with this show specifically in the podcast, like, getting a DM of somebody trying to tell me like, oh, I can get you the views and the likes and the shares. Like you just have me on your podcast and I get you there. That conversation is easy for me to have right now, because I detached myself from the fact that I want my podcast or my talk show to be the best in Arizona, or the best in New Mexico, or the best there ever is. All I want from it, again, is the genuine conversation of sharing what values we align with, so that it can hit with a group of young men that are in that, you know, walk of their journey.
Absolutely.
So being able to tell this person like, yo, bro, like, thank you, but we don't align on certain things that I don't think
Absolutely.
you'll ever be able to understand.
Absolutely.
So I'm gonna have to say no. Like,
sure.
and I thank you for letting me know, but that's what it is.
sure.
Whereas 5 years ago, bro, I would have probably went off on like a whole tangent about why he doesn't deserve to be on my show and how I'm doing this and doing that to make sure that I'm getting the stuff that I need to get to, and just measuring everything. So again, the law of detachment is just having the adaptability factor in you to be able to move, because let's face it, these people that have money out here, bro, they know how to adapt. They could easily probably tell you right now, if they were to go and, get all of their money wiped away, they would find some trade to get into or find some product to start selling.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a mindset, honestly. You know what I mean? And it's an internal thing, truthfully. It's an internal thing that one has to be conscientious about, but through self-actualization and realization, once you start to understand that, like, it doesn't really matter. Like, truthfully, it really doesn't matter. And it just really, it's because there's so much nuance to it. There's so many bullet points, but the reality is, like, what really matters. And that's a question that one has to figure out for themselves. What really matters to them. But I think, honestly, reading this book, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success, is extremely impactful, and it will help. It'll definitely help a lot of people, for sure. Just with perspective.
This is another quote that I read this book, which I do come back to, and I think that's a great thing about the guy that I got this book from. He mentioned how this isn't a book that you ever stop reading. Like, it's easy to go back to a chapter that you're struggling in, or that you want to, just have a self reminder of, hey, pull yourself out of it. It's always going to be this book, and I'm sure this will be one of your very many books that you'll use as a workbook. And there are some questions in here that it will ask you to, like, answer on your own and pull out a piece of paper to, which I enjoy, just being able to interact with it. But the quote itself says, and this is going to be for one of my questions later, the search for security is an illusion. And I think, a big issue, especially nowadays with a lot of things going on in our society and as men, is, regardless of how we show it, everyone is searching for a type of security, whether it's in people, whether it's in consumption of things, whatever it is. But, reading the fact that security is an illusion, which that's kind of deep, bro. Like, that cuts deep, that cuts wounds. I think from an attachment mindset, you can easily be at the top of your list with searching for that. Right off the bat.
For sure.
Like, I am attaching myself to this because I feel secure enough to know that I'm at somewhat of, I want to say peace, but somewhat of a rest mode. And I can just rely on that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you mentioned it, man, in regards, I like how you said that in regards to, like, your podcast and saying, what aligns with it and certain things like that. But the reality is, it also speaks in that chapter of the Law of Detachment, is when you do that, things start to come your way.
Yeah.
When you detach from it, because oftentimes people want things so bad, and whether they attach to it or they feel an urge to want certain things, but once you remove yourself from that desire, things actually start to pull your way. Yeah. And that's what it speaks to. Really, that's a real, key point in that chapter, is when you remove yourself from the anxieties or just the desires or the wants to have, whatever these things are, these items, things, whatever they could be, tangible or not tangible. Once you have understanding and you detach from that, often blessings start to come. And I think that was a big takeaway from me in regards to that chapter, as far as, like, you still pursue your desires, you still pursue your aspirations in regards to what you want. But like how you said, maybe it's like, all right, somebody, you have a podcast and you're like, I'm not focused on views. I'm not focused on being the biggest in this area or wherever it is, but I want to get my message across. I want to touch people. Yeah. I want this to resonate with people. And then boom, it starts to blow up, because the intent was from a pure place, was from a place of, no, I desire this in a genuine way. Yes. I want to reach people. I want to connect with people. I want this to resonate with people. It will blow up just from that. But we're in a space just in totality now where things are for clicks, or things are for views, or things are for clout.
It's a quick turnaround.
Like, what's the core? The core isn't from a real foundation. No. It's not, the foundation of it isn't from not saying it's not from a genuine place, but it's not from a place of, like, real intent
There you go.
and purpose. But anything that happens within purpose, it might take some time, but that's when things start to evolve because the intent is pure, the intent is genuine, and then you start to see things manifest. So that's all of this is spoken about within that chapter.
Yes,
and it's so empowered, and that's why I say this. Man, I appreciate the recommendation because it's a very powerful book.
very powerful.
It really is, and you're right. It's not a book that, I mean, of course you read it, but you can also, like, the replay value is very high. You can go to it forever, honestly, and just
that's what it's made for
Exactly,
too. Yeah,
exactly.
and I definitely
like AJ Brown on the Eagles on the side reading his book. Yeah, it's like, no, you come to it in moments
That's
of
a great
need,
moment.
and you on the sideline, and you like, I need to read a chapter of this. I need to
which
read a few
I think
pages.
is great. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you saw, but on the same topic of the Law of Detachment, AJ Brown, he mentioned how, after they won the Super Bowl, like, he was on an interview saying how he thought winning the Super Bowl would be everything, and that would just be it for him, and that was just a whole totality of what he wanted. And all he had to say was, I mean, it was cool for like a day, but now I want to go win another one.
Yeah.
And I think, again, coming from this is like more topics are to come with these types of conversations from we're both athletes, like,
for sure.
the fact that you guys enjoyed it too, which is a whole different story. We'll talk about it before the show ends, but the fact that he was so tied to like an end result of a Super Bowl, which as an athlete you have to be, but to know that it was a day long of like fulfillment and gratitude and just feeling good, to the next day it was just a new day.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing that we're always taught, as being a God-fearing man, is like every day is your new opportunity to live out what it is to be, a humble, a blessed man, somebody that's respectful, someone that's going to make an impact.
Yeah.
And each day you wake up and it's another try at it, another try at it. And I think that, resonates with him now because of how much growth he's done and understanding like you could live with this Super Bowl and let it be on your heart and your chest for the rest of your life. But is that all you have?
Yeah.
Is that all you stand for?
Yeah.
So I'm glad he saw that though.
Yeah, no, that was amazing when he spoke on it because he said it was the actual, like, him lining up with with what? Because what is he? Is he a wideout or receiver? He's a receiver.
He's a receiver.
He said when he would line up against like against a corner, and he realized like, when he said he would be able to realize like the corners were thinking, or just he could see in their disposition like, you can't stop me. That's what he desired, basically breaking the player.
Yeah.
That's what he found after winning the Super Bowl. At least what he alluded to. I'm just kind of like paraphrasing what he said, but he was saying like that was his it, and that's why I said earlier it's an internal thing. Whatever internally you figure works for you, that's what you have to ride on. Because like you said, he said the Super Bowl, the high off the Super Bowl was for a few days for him. And then he was back working and he realized, it's seeing me break corners in the sense of like them realizing like they can't stop me. That was his it. And of course the byproduct is winning a Super Bowl and winning within that. But that was his it. That was his desire. And he realized like, that's what I yearn for. That's what I want. And that's why from an individualistic standpoint, that's what people have to realize internally. What's their it? What works for them in the sense of whatever it is, from a law of detachment to being like, I want this for my life. I want to operate within this. Let me detach from this because this goal is what I want, or I resonate with this so much that I need to operate within this space. But it's going to be different for everyone. And everybody has to figure out that from an individualistic standpoint.
And there's seasons to it because, I mean, at least in that moment, he's tied to always knowing that he's going to line up for the next few years with the receiver. Sure. Whereas a Super Bowl is not going to come every year, So it's like when you don't win it, that can easily be something that's broken, and then you're just like crumbled, and that's what the season you live in. But I think for him to adjust that, it just shows how much growth he's made, and a lot of these guys nowadays are really understanding that it's not everything to win at whatever it takes anymore. There's a lot of other things in life that you could be doing on top of being a professional athlete, and I think we're seeing a little bit more of that culture come out, which I think is amazing, man, because. I still think we have a long ways to go with teaching athletes and young men that making it to the league isn't just making it to the league anymore. That's not going to hold you off. Like there's,
right.
I think I saw and before we'll get into our hot seat, the average MLB pro baseball player, which is at the highest level, is only in the league for 3 years. Wow. And it's been a decrease, in the last 2 to 3 years, it's gone down by half a year, whereas 3 years ago it was 6 or 5.5, and every year it's gone down since then.
They say what's the reasoning for that? The decrease?
Anything. It's just the players just not getting hurt, or in this case not making it to the league in 3 years, so they'll just leave. Like there's just so many different factors, but also the fact that guys get hurt and a lot of guys don't go back and they don't get the pay cut that they should be to be able to financially help out their families either. So he was like, yeah, 3 years is what an average MLB player is in the league for, and that's not long, man.
That's not.
So again, to the law of detachment of like wanting to grow up and be a professional ball player, like that goal has to be able to be contextualized at a certain age, especially when you're in college, because if you're not getting a degree, you're not doing anything else with your life. You got to understand that there's got to be different outlooks. For sure. Yeah, man, like it's really cool. I could talk about this all day. All day we can talk about this.
Absolutely.
But we'll go ahead and enter our hot seat segment. And again, another great lineup of questions that we can go off on. So we'll go ahead and get started with yours, Julian. We'll ask you question number 1. What's one thing you used to stress over but now realize didn't matter?
That's a good question. Again, I'll allude to what we spoke to a little bit earlier. I think it was just from like a standpoint of just certain tangible items,
Okay.
like clothes, shoes, things like that. And I'm just thinking about something just kind of like from a rapid fire standpoint.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that stuff just doesn't matter. At least where I'm at now, like I'm gonna always dress a certain way. I'm gonna always be fresh and just certain things like that, humbly. But it doesn't really matter in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
Truthfully.
Okay. If you could go back and tell your younger self one thing about success, what would it be?
That is like the road is, you really just have no idea. Like in the sense of like, I believe a lot of times we have a vision of how we want things to pan out, but that road to get there, it's like a roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's up, down, side, backwards, up again, down, like straight forward. Like there's so many different variations to it. But I think ultimately just staying the course and having whatever you want, just being fixated on that, that's what matters the most.
That's good. That's powerful. What's something you let go of that made your life 10 times better?
Man, I'm gonna be very, very honest, and I say this from a logic standpoint and never from a jaded standpoint. But I think really, really, for one, always putting your trust in God first, in Jesus. But I don't really put too much trust into people, because people will fail you. People will let you down.
I like that.
And that's not from a jaded standpoint.
No. I know, I know exactly what you mean.
It's from a standpoint of just always being like, I have me. I got me. And I think, that can allude to, just walking within your manhood and certain things like that. But my mindset is just, no, I have me. Like in a real way. Like I have me. And not to say you don't have people that are there for you, but always knowing like you have you. That's a real mind frame.
That is. What's one mantra or quote that keeps you grounded when life isn't going your way?
That's a good question. I would have to think more so about any mantras or anything like that. But I think
or one thing you live by, like
absolutely,
a catchphrase that you live by that would define you as a person.
I just look at it like, and this goes for you, this goes for anybody watching this, like we're still here.
Yeah.
Like we're still here. And I mean that in a sense, I was just talking to one of my friends, and she was talking about some things she was going through, and I told her, I was like, just from an encouragement standpoint, everything that you're speaking to me about and that you're going through is real. But we're on the phone right now. You're still here. Like you're not gone. You haven't passed away. You're not you're still here.
Yeah.
So you've made it. Like you've made it through all the stuff that you've gone through. And this goes for all of us. We're still here. And that's what I reflect on, regardless of whatever I've been through, whatever you've been through, whatever any of us have been through, you're still here. You're a warrior. And you have to have that mindset. You have to have a warrior mindset. As a man, as a woman, whatever it is, from a warrior mindset, it's going to be a little bit different, of course. But from the mindset of, I'm still here. I made it. I persevered. I figured it out. And in times of when you're going through stuff, I just reflect back to other times or other things that I've been through, or that you've been through, or that anybody's been through. Reflect back to those times and be like, I made it here. So, I mean,
that's crazy.
You know what I mean? You're still here.
Yeah.
And yes, it's gonna be hard. And yes, there are gonna be times where you're like, think about you being here now and the times that you were going through stuff and you're like, I don't know how I'm gonna make it through this.
Yeah.
But you're here. You know what I mean? You're here. So you made it through. You made it through, man. So it's like, that's what I think about.
Yeah.
When you're by yourself, when you're trying to figure it out, reflect back to those times when you're like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. But you're at the point you're at now. So you've obviously made it through. You persevered. You figured it out. So that's what I reflect to. And I would challenge anybody in a motivational way, reflect back to those times and be like, no, I'm still here. I'm a warrior. I'm a fighter. I figured it out. I persevered. Always reflect back and think where you are now and be like, I'm here.
That's good, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you for being honest.
Love,
Thank you for
man.
sharing the love.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you. Woo. All right, I'll have to follow that up. Dang, man. I'm going to have to start going first on these.
Go ahead. Do your thing, man.
Oh, gosh. Okay. What's one thing you used to stress over but now realize didn't matter? Being out every weekend.
That's honest. That's honest.
I think, it took me, I would say 2 years ago, it was really hard for me to not be out and be seen every weekend. Coming from a small town, I think like just, in a short wrapped up version, it's a different level. You go out, you see the same people, you see family, it is what it is. But like, I think there's a different level of getting out here and going to experience things and, really having that like full sensation of like having fun and like over the top, just like, wow. Like, again, you can get in that mixed moment of like, I'm really here. I really did this for myself. And it's like pure enjoyment. And then you come back and it's like a downfall of like the high of just like, oh man, like, I can't wait for the next weekend. So I will say like, I think, one thing that I didn't realize mattered so much is just being happy with not having the fear of missing out on being out every weekend. And I think I've learned a lot for myself. So that would be it. That would be it for sure. If you could go back and tell your younger self one thing about success, what would it be? If I could go back and tell myself one thing about success, I would tell myself that it's a lonely journey. I think
That's a fact.
What makes me sour about movies or like inspirational like videos or whatever is that they always talk about, or documentaries, like they always have their friends and their buddies that they've known since they were 5 and 6 and in the back of the van or like going on tour with them or like in the studio session till 4 a.m. And you're like, I'm going to do that with my friend. Like I'm going to do that. And man, dude, the amount of times that I tried to, and it's no knock on the people that I came across because I definitely probably did some stuff that wasn't all right to them, and that hurt their feelings. But I think trying to do that and mix my journey and my ambitions with my friends, certain friends at a certain point, just did me dirty in my own way. And it applies a lot to what you talked about in one of your questions. But for this specific moment, I would tell myself again, like it's a lonely journey finding success. When majority of the people are out doing the things that majority of people do, you're going to be inside feeling like, am I really enjoying this right now?
When you're not seeing anything happen.
Am I really liking the fact that, I'm making content and I don't necessarily know why I want to do it. But you reflect back on the foundation of the fact that you told yourself, since you were 18, 19 years old, that you wanted to make an impact and that you would do anything in your power to do something that made you feel as good as playing a sport. And in that case, it was a podcast. And in that case, it was sharing somebody's message or someone's journey to where now it's like, oh, bro, I love it, but it's lonely. Like you are doing it on your own and nobody's looking at you to do it. Nobody's telling you to wake up and get the content made or to do it. It's all on you do it or you don't. Yeah. And when you don't, nobody's saying, oh, pour me home, pour this, pour that. Yeah. It's like you just didn't do it and you're not getting there. Yeah. So I will say like that would be my biggest thing is accept the fact that you are going to be on your own for a while.
For sure.
And the right people are going to come when it's time to come. But if you're not working, it's not going to be reliable. So that would be it right there. Oh man, that was deep. All right. What's something you let go of that made your life 10 times better? Sheesh, bro.
These are good questions, man.
These are good ones. Oh man. What's something you let go of that made your life 10 times better? I would say in the most recent moments, caffeine. Like I've taken a significant less amount of caffeine consumption in the last month. And I will say to anyone out there that's like, in the case of like having that stimulation of, coffee or pre-workout or whatever it is that you use every single day, like it's a tough challenge. It's a very tough challenge, but believe me, when you don't feel, overwhelmed, or you don't feel like there's so much going on, when you have, natural energy in your body, or, supplements, or, real food compared to some of these, coffee or these pre-workouts that you put into your body. And I love it, man. Like I go to the gym and I feel like I'm way more zoned in and focused at the gym. Sure. I'll take like a couple 100 milligrams of caffeine a day now. Like I'm drinking like half a coffee and like 100 milligrams of pre-workout to where I was doing like 400 milligrams a day. Sure. So I think I'm seeing that now. I'm like way more aware of the feelings and the emotions that I have.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's made a huge difference in my everyday life. So I would say caffeine consumption and managing that a lot better has made a huge difference in my life. Mm-hmm. What's one mantra or quote that keeps you grounded when life isn't going your way? I thought it was funny that you mentioned that, because my mantra is look how far you've come.
For sure.
Like look how far, like it there doesn't even need to be an explanation into it, but by all means, it's when I'm in that mindset again of like, why am I doing this? Like I could easily be doing something else, or what's the purpose for today? I really just look back to like, dude, you've come so far. Like anybody that has, waking up and been able to, put aside their adversities, or put aside the feelings that they've had towards certain things, or, losses, or, doctor's results, whatever it is, you still got up and you still attacked the day. And I think that tells a lot about somebody. So one mantra that I always live by, and my dad always taught me like to be an optimistic person, and was very much a guy that was just like a half, a glass is half full type of man. He literally instilled that in me to where now I'm like, bro, look at how far you've come.
Absolutely.
From a healthy perspective. Absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Like from like a, hey dude, like keep going.
Yeah.
Like there's no numbers right now, but they're going to come, there's no this right now, but it's going to come, but just keep being consistent. Absolutely. And that's one thing that I live by every single day, man. And I will say, like, I have my struggles, I have my things, and I have my, areas that I need to really work on, but
we all do.
My journey is like, and your journey, I'm sure for you, it's, you got to look back on it.
For sure.
Like you got to look back and say, wow, appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I'll leave with this, because I've been thinking about this a lot just while working, and just, just from the perspective of, and I actually like closed my eyes and thought about it, because a lot of times I watched something and the guy, he did like a, he was talking about how he was speaking at a conference, and he told everybody to close their eyes just so they could get a real realization of it. So I was thinking, like, for men specifically, if you're in a jungle, like, you know what I mean? Let's say you were with people and you're in a jungle, I mean this in a real way, not metaphorically, in a real way, and you're in a jungle. And let's say a day goes by, a few days goes by, and you're kind of wondering, like, man, are they gonna come like come find me? Like, you know what I mean? Like I'm in this jungle by myself, and it made me think, just from a real, like, I'm coming from a motivational standpoint at this point. There comes a time when you have to realize, just for men, when I say jungle, but life, I'm equating the jungle as life. You're in that jungle, but in a real way. You're in that jungle by yourself. There has to become a real realization to where you realize nobody's coming for you. Nobody's coming to save you. Like, either you figure out how to make fire, either you figure out how to, like, you develop some type of route or escape plan within your mind, or you figure it out, because nobody is coming for you. When you embrace that, that's when you really, really can start to, like, become Tarzan.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You start learning how, like, the birds are making sounds. So you're figuring when a predator might be coming your way, you figure out what plants are poisonous. You're figuring out, what food you can eat. And I'm just saying that in a way of relating that to life, in a sense of nobody is coming to save you. Of course, Jesus. But and I'm not saying a but, because there's no conjunction after saying Jesus. But also in the sense of,
but it's not a cop out.
Yeah, just life.
It's
just life.
You got to go after a certain thing.
You have to go for it, and that goes in regards to the example you gave, to whereas you can be in, you're in a crib, you're editing, you're doing certain stuff. It might be a Friday night, a Saturday night, and people are out and you're doing it, and you're not seeing results or whatever it is. Nobody is coming to save you, so you have to put in that work. You have to be in the gym when you have to be doing push-ups when nobody's in the crib. You have to be trying to figure it out when nobody's like, how you said, nobody's like, Mijo, are you okay? Like, are you all right? Like, what's going on? Are you like, it has to be internal. And I think when you embrace that, when you really, really embrace that, that's why you see certain men that have a disposition about themselves to where it's like, man, he's different, or he has a warrior type aspect to himself because he embraced it.
Yeah.
He embraced it
That's
for
strong,
real.
man.
And you have to embrace it. That's the difference. That's the difference when you see certain men, and I'm speaking to men very specifically right now. That's the difference when you see certain men and they have a certain disposition and they walk with a certain, disposition, and they have a certain just aura about themselves. They've embraced being in the jungle by themselves, and they're like, no, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna do pull-ups on these branches. I'm gonna get into I'm gonna figure it out, and I'm gonna be calm. And when people see me, they're gonna be like, ooh, we left him, but he's Tarzan.
Yeah.
He's Tarzan. And I'm just using that jungle example, and I'm alluding that and making that linear with life. And that's why I say embrace the suffering, embrace being in the jungle, because that's what's it breaks certain people.
It
breaks certain people.
And some people need to be broken.
Yeah, but it breaks certain people for the worse.
Oh,
not
for sure.
Not to break them, to build them
for
back
sure.
up. You know
Yeah,
what I mean, that breaks certain people. But then you have people that embrace it and they're like, oh, okay, this is the reality, bro. If we're really in a jungle right now and we're by ourselves, we have no choice but to figure it out. Because ultimately, just to speak very candid, if you don't figure out to make it to the next day, life ends. Life ends. So in a real way, as men, embrace being in the jungle. Embrace that, because what's going to happen from that is you being a warrior. When you look at 300, when you look at these are real. These aren't just fictitious characters. These were real men at one point. Vikings and Spartans and warriors. They're real. They were real. We just don't live in that time anymore. But these were real men. So I'm just saying that to say, like, for men, embrace being in the jungle, because again, you're still here. You're going to make it through it, and you're going to reflect back and be like, man, I have the attributes to make it anywhere because I embraced being in the jungle. So embrace it. Embrace it.
Figure it out. I think that's a perfect thing. That's another thing that growing up, that's what you tell these kids when you're playing a sport is like, you got to figure it out on your own, man.
Figure it out.
Like, you really got to just dig deep.
Yeah. It's not going to be easy.
Find a way.
Don't get me wrong. It's going to be very hard. No. That's where prayer comes in. That's where working out comes in. You have to activate those things.
It builds a level of independence for a lot of people, bro. And I think it's easy to slip the cracks in it. And there's areas that you'll always need to find that independence.
For
and
sure.
It's easy to be, too independent, which is a whole different other story. But like, it's a happy medium with anything. So no, man, I love that explanation, and thank you for sharing that. Because I think we all need, a little bit of a moment to understand that there is going to be a time where we're tested. There's going to be moments in that life, in that mindset. And, just because you don't have someone to lean on doesn't mean that you don't get it done. You know what I mean? Because it's not their job to get it done. That's a lot to ask for from a family member or a friend. They're there to love and care and support you. But
that is where brotherhood comes into place, though.
It does.
That might be for another.
Yeah. But I do like, and I want to have that conversation next time about how, like, there's nothing wrong with only trust, like not only trusting, but like trusting yourself before putting that much trust into other people.
For sure.
I think there's a lot of validity in that. And I think there's a lot of issues with, people trying to put certain expectations on people off the jump, when in reality, it's like, there's no ring on it. There's no brotherhoodship, or there's no things that you've gone through together to really show his credibility in being a brother to you. Yeah. So, bro, I definitely want to have that conversation with you next time. So, lastly, that I just want to close with is the fact that, I was telling Julian that we've been getting numerous amount of support from people on TikTok, on Instagram. And I think the overall concept and theme that I'm very much appreciative for, because Julian plays a part in it, is the fact that you guys are saying stuff that is genuine to me. And it's the fact that the show is about real topics, real things.
Absolutely.
It's easy for me to really look at some of this content and be like, honestly, I'd rather be talking about other things that are funny, or I see other podcasts or shows that are talking about things that are going on in the world and, applying to society a little bit more. And it's just like, by all means, I definitely get that temptation to just be like, Julian, let's talk about this. But it doesn't fill me. Like, that stuff does not tie to me anymore. So I'm very thankful and appreciative towards you guys. And I just wanted to say thank you. Say thank you again to Julian. And I'll always thank Julian and the people that help out with this. But you guys are real, man. So you guys have a good one.
show them.